Everyone wants success, but not everyone is prepared for the path it demands. We celebrate talent, praise intelligence, admire charisma, yet the people who truly rise to the top, the ones who stay there and grow through every season, almost always share one thing in common: mental toughness. It's the quiet force behind every story of resilience, the invisible strength that carries people through long nights, hard failures, slow progress, and relentless pressure. It's what keeps a student studying after failing the first test. It's what brings an athlete back after injury. It's what helps an entrepreneur keep building when nothing seems to be working. But mental toughness is often misunderstood. People think it means being emotionless, never showing weakness, acting like nothing bothers you. But that's not mental strength, that's avoidance. Real mental toughness isn't about shutting down your feelings. It's about standing strong with them, feeling fear and still moving forward, facing stress and choosing clarity, being tired, discouraged, overwhelmed, and still showing up. That's power, and that's what this audiobook is about. Here's the good news. Mental toughness is not something you're born with. It's something you build. You build it like a muscle through repeated reps of showing up, staying focused, and moving through discomfort instead of avoiding it. You build it when you don't hit your goal, but stay with the process. When you get rejected and come back wiser. When things take longer than you hoped, but you don't quit. In this audiobook, we're going to break down exactly how to develop that kind of strength. We'll uncover what mental toughness really is, how it works in the real world, and most importantly, how to train your mind just like you'd train your body. You'll learn how to push through mental fatigue, bounce back from failure, stay focused under pressure, and build systems that support you when your willpower runs low. And you'll see that mental toughness isn't just for elite performers. It's for anyone who's tired of starting over, tired of quitting early, tired of being ruled by feelings and external chaos. Mental toughness is for you if you're ready to lead yourself, even when life doesn't cooperate. So let's begin this journey, not with hype, not with unrealistic promises, but with truth, clarity, and practical tools. Because once you train your mind to be tough, consistent, and focused, everything else in your life begins to change. Chapter 1. Understanding mental toughness. Before you can build mental toughness, you have to truly understand what it is and what it's not. Too many people associate mental strength with aggression, denial, or pretending that things don't affect you. They think being tough means always pushing, never complaining, never feeling, and never slowing down. But that's not mental toughness. That's emotional armor, and it eventually cracks. True mental toughness is quieter. It's internal. It's not about how you appear to others. It's about how you respond to yourself. It's about staying steady in the storm. It's about leading yourself, especially when no one is watching. When things aren't going your way, or when the path ahead feels overwhelming. At its core, mental toughness is your ability to navigate discomfort, uncertainty, and pressure without losing yourself in the process. It's not built on bravado. It's built on resilience, self-awareness, and commitment. Mental toughness is about response, not reaction. Every day we're faced with challenges big and small. A delay, a rejection, a disappointment, an unexpected shift. Your body feels the stress, and your mind begins to spin. And in that moment, you have two choices: react automatically or respond intentionally. Reactions are quick, emotional, and often short-sighted. You snap, retreat, shut down, or fall into patterns of avoidance. Responses are deliberate. They come from space, from clarity, from training your mind to pause, breathe, and choose the next right step even if it's hard. Mental toughness gives you that pause. It's the space between impulse and action. It's the skill of observing your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You don't become mentally tough by ignoring your feelings. You become mentally tough by mastering how you respond to them. Mental toughness is built, not born. Some people seem to handle pressure naturally. They remain calm in chaos. They stay composed in competition. They push through fatigue while others give in. It might look like they were just born that way. But if you dig deeper, you'll almost always find a story, a set of habits, a way of thinking that was developed over time, a process, not a gift. Mental toughness isn't something you either have or don't have. It's a skill just like physical strength, public speaking, or leadership. And like any skill, it can be learned, trained, and refined. That means no matter where you're starting from, whether you've struggled with consistency, self-doubt, or emotional overwhelm, you can become mentally tougher than you are right now. Every time you face resistance and choose to stay the course, you're practicing it. Every time you fall and get back up, you're reinforcing it. Every time you delay gratification in service of a long-term goal, you're strengthening it. Mental toughness grows through reps, through challenges, through the ordinary grind of showing up on days when nothing feels easy. Mental toughness is not just about endurance, it's about strategy. People often think mental toughness is about simply powering through, just pushing harder, just working longer, just never quitting. But endurance without strategy can become self-sabotage. Mental toughness isn't just about willpower, it's about wisdom. It's about knowing what to push through, when to rest, and how to adjust your approach without abandoning your mission. Sometimes being mentally tough means taking a break so you can come back stronger. Sometimes it means asking for help instead of pretending you've got it all together. Sometimes it means shifting direction, not because you've failed, but because you've grown. Toughness without flexibility becomes stubbornness. But mental toughness is adaptive. It's about sustaining effort, not just surviving the grind. So, if you've believed that being tough means pushing through pain no matter what, it's time to rethink. True toughness is being strong and smart. Mental toughness is about identity. Here's where it gets powerful. The toughest people don't just act tough. They see themselves as mentally strong. That identity becomes their compass. When setbacks hit, they don't ask, "Can I handle this?" They say, "I'm the kind of person who finds a way forward." When discomfort arises, they don't say, "I can't deal with this." They say, "This is part of the process." Your identity shapes your behavior, and your behavior reinforces your identity. It's a loop. When you start viewing yourself as someone who is mentally tough, someone who shows up consistently, who keeps promises to themselves, who doesn't fold under pressure, you'll begin acting in alignment with that self-image, even on bad days, especially on bad days. And over time, mental toughness becomes less of a technique and more of a trait. Mental toughness isn't motivation, it's self-leadership. Motivation is nice when it's there. It can feel exciting, electric, empowering. But motivation is temporary. It fades. It gets shaken by difficulty. It disappears when things stop going your way. That's why mental toughness is built on something deeper: self-leadership. Self-leadership means you don't need someone else to hold you accountable. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You don't need perfect conditions to take action. You lead yourself even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, even when no one claps. You take responsibility for your actions, your attitude, and your attention. This doesn't mean you never struggle. It means you don't use the struggle as an excuse to abandon the process. You keep showing up, not because it's easy, but because you've decided that growth matters more than comfort. That's what self-leadership looks like, and it's the heartbeat of mental toughness. Real-life examples of mental toughness in action. Let's make this practical. Imagine a college student preparing for final exams. She's anxious, overwhelmed, and behind on her study schedule. Her instinct is to avoid, to scroll, to sleep anything but face the pressure. But she remembers her bigger goal: to graduate with pride, not regret. She breathes. She opens the book. She starts small, 30 minutes, then another. Each decision to show up becomes a micro-win, and over time, she regains control. That's mental toughness. Or think of a parent juggling work, family, and personal health goals. It's easier to skip the workout, easier to grab takeout, easier to push self-care to later. But one night, instead of collapsing onto the couch, he puts on his shoes and walks for 20 minutes. Not because it's glamorous, but because it honors his commitment. That's mental toughness. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It's in the small, repeated moments when you choose your future self over your current discomfort. Why this matters more than ever. We live in a world of constant distraction, endless comparison, and instant gratification. Everything around us pushes for speed, ease, and surface-level success. But real growth is still slow, still hard, still rooted in discomfort and effort. That's why mental toughness is more important than ever. It gives you the strength to stay focused in a world of noise, the resilience to keep going in a culture that glorifies quitting when things get hard, the courage to stay grounded when everyone else is chasing trends. Mental toughness is the competitive edge that doesn't fade. Because when you build it, you can weather any storm, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Coming up next, in the next chapter, we'll go deeper. You'll learn about the foundational practices and disciplines that support mental toughness, from self-awareness to emotional regulation to daily structure. Because now that you understand what mental toughness really is, it's time to start building it. Brick by brick, rep by rep. Let's get to work. Chapter 2. The Foundations of Mental Toughness. You can't build a skyscraper on sand. No matter how ambitious your goals or how motivated you feel today, if the foundation underneath you isn't solid, everything will eventually crumble. The same is true with mental toughness. Before you can become someone who pushes through discomfort, rises under pressure, and thrives in adversity, you have to lay the groundwork. That means creating a stable mental framework you can return to when things get hard, because they will get hard. So what is that foundation made of? There are 3 core pillars that form the base of mental toughness: self-awareness, discipline, and emotional regulation. Master these, and you'll have a strong platform to handle whatever life throws your way. Let's explore each one deeply. 1. Self-awareness, the beginning of all strength. You cannot lead what you do not understand, and that includes yourself. Mental toughness doesn't start with grit or grind. It starts with clarity. Specifically, clarity about who you are, what drives you, and how you respond under pressure. Self-awareness means stepping out of autopilot and asking, what are my default reactions to stress? When do I tend to give up or check out? What thoughts loop in my head when I'm under pressure? What beliefs are shaping my choices, and are they helping me or hurting me? When you lack self-awareness, you live reactively. You chase distractions, avoid challenges, and repeat old habits without knowing why. But when you're aware of your internal world, your patterns, your fears, your tendencies, you gain leverage. You can interrupt those patterns. You can choose differently. You can pause instead of panic. Let's say you notice that every time a task feels overwhelming, you open your phone and scroll. Most people do this unconsciously. But a self-aware person sees the pattern and says, I'm not lazy, I'm afraid. This feels big, and I'm looking for escape. What's one small step I can take instead? That single moment of awareness changes everything. Mental toughness doesn't mean pretending you're not afraid. It means seeing your fear clearly and acting anyway. The more self-aware you become, the less you get pushed around by your emotions, distractions, or subconscious reactions. You become the one steering the ship, not just holding on. 2. Discipline, doing what's right, even when it's hard. Once you see clearly, the next step is to act intentionally, and that requires discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. It's honoring your commitments even when the mood fades. It's staying loyal to your decisions long after the excitement has worn off. Most people wait to feel motivated before taking action. But the truth is, motivation is a result, not a requirement. It's something that shows up after you start moving, not before. Discipline, on the other hand, is dependable. It doesn't ask how you feel. It simply reminds you, this is what we said we'd do. It's the daily action of getting up, showing up, and following through even when you'd rather not. That might mean sticking to your morning routine when you're tired, or making the tough phone call when you'd rather delay, or saying no to short-term pleasures that derail your long-term progress. Every time you act with discipline, you build trust with yourself. And that trust is everything. Because when life shakes your confidence, when results are slow, or things fall apart, you won't rely on hope. You'll rely on your habits, on your structure, on your ability to show up regardless of circumstances. Discipline makes you dangerous not because you're perfect, but because you're relentless. 3. Emotional regulation, staying steady in the storm. The third pillar of mental toughness is emotional regulation, the ability to manage your internal state under stress, pressure, or uncertainty. Let's be honest, life will test you. You'll feel discouraged, frustrated, angry, exhausted. You'll be misunderstood, rejected, criticized. You'll face days when everything seems against you. In those moments, emotions surge, and without regulation, they take over. You snap at people you love. You abandon your goals. You spiral into doubt. You make decisions based on impulse instead of wisdom. But emotional regulation doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means processing them without being owned by them. It means pausing before you respond. It means asking yourself, what am I feeling, and what's the best way forward from here? Think of it like driving in a storm. The rain is heavy. The road is slippery. You can't stop the weather, but you can slow down. You can grip the wheel. You can adjust your route without panicking. That's emotional regulation. And just like physical strength, it can be trained through breath work, through mindfulness, through journaling, through choosing not to act immediately when emotions run high. One of the most powerful things you can do when emotions flare is this: wait. Give yourself 5 minutes, 1 hour, a walk, a reset. Time gives your brain space to shift from emotional reactivity to rational clarity. The more you practice this, the stronger your mental muscle becomes. You become the calm in the chaos, not by avoiding emotion, but by learning how to move with it skillfully. Putting the foundations together: self-awareness, discipline, emotional regulation. Alone, each of these is powerful. But together, they create a foundation strong enough to support extraordinary growth. Imagine someone with all three. They notice when they're slipping and they course correct without shame. They follow through on their goals even when it's boring, inconvenient, or hard. They manage pressure with grace, responding instead of reacting. That person isn't superhuman. They've simply trained, and you can too. But here's the key. It doesn't happen by accident. You must practice these foundations daily. Self-awareness grows through reflection, journaling, honest conversation, quiet observation. Discipline grows through repetition, choosing the right action again and again, even in small things. Emotional regulation grows through intention, pausing, breathing, grounding, and responding wisely. Mental toughness is not about force, it's about foundation. And when your foundation is strong, you can handle more. Dream bigger, fall and get back up faster. Push through resistance without losing your balance. The inner game always comes first. You can have the best strategy in the world, the perfect productivity system, the sharpest goals. But if your mind is undisciplined, emotionally reactive, or unaware, you will sabotage your own success. That's why the inner game matters more than the outer. Mental toughness doesn't just help you succeed, it helps you stay successful, because you can't control the economy, you can't control other people, you can't control the weather, the timing, or the outcome, but you can control your response. And when you have control of that truly, you become unstoppable. Coming up next, in the next chapter, we'll shift from foundation to application. You'll learn how to train mental toughness through discomfort, the key to growing your strength in real time, not in theory, but in the middle of the challenge. Because discomfort isn't something to fear, it's the gym where mental toughness is built. Let's step into that gym and start training. Chapter 3. Training through discomfort. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. Discomfort is a sign that something important is happening. It's easy to talk about growth when everything feels good. It's easy to set goals when you're inspired. It's easy to make plans in a quiet room with a cup of coffee and no interruptions. But real growth, real transformation, it happens in the messy middle, in the moments when you don't feel like doing the work, when your body is tired, your mind is resistant, and your emotions are screaming for escape. That's where mental toughness is built, not in ease, but in discomfort. And here's the truth most people miss. Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the training ground. If you only move forward when it feels good, you'll never get far. You'll plateau at the first sign of friction. You'll interpret resistance as a reason to stop instead of a signal to grow. This chapter is about learning how to train through discomfort, not just survive it, but use it, to become the kind of person who doesn't run from hard things, but steps into them with courage and clarity. Discomfort is where the work gets real. Think about anyone who's ever accomplished something meaningful: a marathon runner, a successful entrepreneur, a parent raising children, a student getting through a grueling degree, a person recovering from heartbreak or rebuilding after failure. They all have one thing in common. They didn't get there by staying comfortable. They felt the sting of failure, the weight of fatigue, the frustration of slow progress, and they kept going anyway. Why? Because they knew something most people forget. Discomfort is part of the process, not a problem to be solved, but a signal to be embraced. Mental toughness is built in the moments when you want to quit, but don't. When everything inside you says stop and you choose to take one more step. You don't need to enjoy discomfort. You just need to respect it, to recognize it as the weight that strengthens you if you lift it. The brain's natural resistance to discomfort. Let's get practical. Your brain is wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. That's not weakness, it's survival. Evolutionarily, avoiding discomfort kept us safe. But in the modern world, that instinct can hold you back. Because most discomfort today isn't life-threatening. It's psychological, emotional, internal. It's the fear of failure, rejection, judgment, the frustration of being misunderstood, the boredom of repetition, the anxiety of uncertainty. And your brain, still following its ancient wiring, says, let's avoid this. Let's scroll, let's eat, let's quit. Let's do anything but feel this. That's why most people give up too soon. Not because they're incapable, but because they mistake discomfort for danger. Mental toughness begins when you learn to separate the two. When you say, this is hard, but I'm not in danger. I can stay with this. I can breathe through this. I can choose action anyway. That's the first step toward freedom. Training the mind like a muscle. Just as a body becomes stronger through stress and recovery, your mind becomes stronger through intentional exposure to challenge. Every time you face something uncomfortable and stay with it, your threshold expands, your tolerance grows, your inner dialogue shifts. Let's say you set a goal to wake up earlier. At first, it feels brutal. Your body protests, your mind looks for excuses, your habits resist. But you do it anyway. Not perfectly. Not with ease. But consistently. and after a few days or weeks, the resistance weakens. What once felt impossible becomes your new normal. That's not just a behavior shift, that's mental reconditioning. Or imagine you're trying to build the habit of public speaking. The first time, your heart races, your voice shakes, you feel exposed, vulnerable, but you do it, then you do it again. Each time, the discomfort shrinks. The fear doesn't fully disappear, but your relationship to it changes. You stop running, you start rising. That's what training through discomfort looks like. Micro-discomfort as a daily practice. You don't need a life crisis to develop mental toughness. You can train every single day by leaning into small, voluntary discomforts. Wake up when your alarm goes off instead of snoozing. Finish the task you want to abandon. Speak the truth when it would be easier to stay quiet. Stretch one more rep in your workout. Sit with an emotion instead of distracting yourself from it. These may seem insignificant, but they're not. They're reps, each one a quiet vote for your future self. When you make discomfort a normal part of life, you stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing it, you become unstoppable. Learning to reframe discomfort. A key part of training through discomfort is how you interpret it. Most people see discomfort as a warning sign, a red light, a signal to stop. But mentally tough people see it as a green light, a sign they're on the edge of growth. They reframe the story. Instead of, "This is hard, I should stop," they say, "This is hard, so it matters." Instead of, "This is uncomfortable, I must be doing it wrong," they say, "This is uncomfortable, so I'm probably on the right track." This mental shift is everything. It turns discomfort from something to be avoided into something to be respected. It gives you permission to feel resistance without letting it control your choices. And that reframe allows you to stay in the arena, even when the crowd goes quiet and the spotlight fades. The role of recovery in toughness training. Training through discomfort doesn't mean constant strain. Just like physical training, your mind needs recovery. You build strength not just through stress, but through the balance of challenge and restoration. That means learning when to push and when to pause, when to sprint and when to breathe. This is not weakness, it's strategy. Because when you recover well, you come back stronger, more focused, more resilient, more capable. So include rest in your training plan. Make space for reflection, sleep, stillness. Not as a reward for working hard, but as part of the work itself. Rest with intention, then re-engage with intensity. Trusting the process. Training through discomfort is not glamorous. You won't always feel progress. You won't always see results right away. Some days, it will feel like nothing is changing, but beneath the surface something always is. Mental toughness is not a one-time decision. It's a lifestyle, a commitment to becoming someone who keeps going not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. So trust the process. Even when the work is quiet, even when the progress is slow, even when no one notices but you, because the discomfort you're willing to face today becomes the strength you'll rely on tomorrow. Coming up next. In the next chapter, we'll shift into mindset, the resilient mindset that fuels perseverance. You'll learn how to frame challenges, how to bounce back from setbacks, and how to build the kind of thinking that doesn't crumble under pressure. Because what you think determines how you act, and how you act determines how far you'll go. Let's keep building one hard thing at a time. Chapter 4. Building a resilient mindset. Resilience is not about avoiding hardship. It's about facing it and rising from it, stronger and wiser than before. We all face pressure. We all hit walls. But what separates those who bounce back from those who stay down isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's mindset. It's the way you talk to yourself when things go wrong. It's the way you interpret failure, pain, and delay. It's the stories you tell yourself about adversity. That's why mental toughness and resilience go hand in hand. Because the toughest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall and decide to get back up again and again. Not out of blind optimism, but because they've trained their minds to see setbacks through a different lens. This chapter is about building that lens, developing a mindset so resilient, so grounded, that no matter what life throws your way, you adapt, respond, and keep going. Let's break that mindset down and learn how to build it. Resilience begins in your interpretation of events. When something difficult happens, you lose a job, you get rejected, your plans fall apart, the event itself is neutral. What determines how it affects you is your interpretation. Do you see the event as a sign that you're not good enough? Proof that things will never work out for you? Or a challenge to learn from, adjust to, and rise through? That difference, that narrative choice, shapes your entire response. Psychologists call this cognitive framing. Simply put, it's the story you assign to what happens. Resilient people don't lie to themselves. They don't pretend things are easy when they're not. But they choose constructive interpretations over destructive ones. They don't say, "This proves I'm a failure." They say, "This shows me where I need to grow." They don't say, "This always happens to me." They say, "This is hard, and I can handle hard things." Reframing doesn't remove pain, but it removes power from victimhood and hands it back to you. The 3 core beliefs of a resilient mind. If you study resilient people, from survivors of trauma to elite athletes, from entrepreneurs who've lost everything to everyday parents holding families together, you'll find 3 core beliefs at work. 1. I can influence what happens next. Resilient people believe in agency. Even if they can't control the situation, they believe they can control their response. This belief keeps them from feeling helpless. It moves them into action. 2. Setbacks are part of the process. They don't expect the road to be smooth. They're not surprised when things get tough. In fact, they prepare for it. This helps them stay calm when others panic. 3. I've handled hard things before, and I'll handle this too. Resilient people reference their past victories, even small ones. They draw strength from proof. These beliefs aren't magical. They're built through practice, and they become your mindset, not when life is easy, but when you choose to believe them in the middle of adversity. Emotional agility. Responding without getting stuck. Building a resilient mindset doesn't mean always being positive. It doesn't mean pretending things don't hurt. It means being emotionally agile, able to feel deeply, and still move forward. When you ignore your emotions, they eventually control you. But when you acknowledge them without letting them define you, you gain freedom. Imagine you get blindsided by a betrayal. Your first response might be anger, or confusion, or grief. A resilient mindset doesn't say, "Don't feel that." It says, "Feel it and choose your next step wisely." You might need time to process. A walk, a journal, a conversation. But once the wave passes, you ground yourself. You ask, what's mine to own here? What's mine to learn? What matters now? Emotional agility is the ability to feel everything and choose action aligned with your values, not your mood. Rejection, failure, and delay, the 3 great teachers. There are 3 tests almost everyone will face on the path to anything worthwhile: rejection, failure, and delay. Each one can feel like a closed door, but each one, when reframed, becomes a powerful teacher. Rejection teaches you that you are not for everyone, and that's okay. It forces clarity. It sharpens your voice. It prepares you for something more aligned. Failure teaches you that doing your best doesn't always guarantee success, and that success isn't always the best teacher. Failure invites humility, growth, iteration. It breaks ego and builds wisdom. Delay teaches patience. It exposes whether you are chasing results or building character. Delay asks, will you still show up when the applause is gone? when no one's watching, when progress is invisible. A resilient mindset doesn't see these moments as dead ends. It sees them as part of the curriculum. If you want strength, you must go through resistance. Resilience is a choice you make daily. People often wait until life falls apart to try to build resilience. But the truth is, resilience is built long before the storm. It's built when you keep your word to yourself on a slow, ordinary Tuesday. Follow through when no one is checking on you. Ask for help instead of pretending you're fine. Learn from a mistake instead of hiding from it. Stand back up after a tough moment, even shakily. These moments matter more than the big ones, because they train your mindset to default to strength. Resilience is not one heroic act. It's 1,000 quiet decisions to stay grounded, stay honest, and stay in motion. Build mental scripts before you need them. One powerful practice to build resilience is to create mental scripts, words, or phrases you can lean on when your emotions are high and clarity is low. These scripts act like anchors. They stabilize your thinking and guide your behavior in difficult moments. Examples: this is hard, but I can do hard things. I don't need to feel confident to take action. One breath, one step, one choice at a time. I've been here before. I know how to move forward. This doesn't define me, it develops me. Practice these phrases when things are calm, so they're available to you when things get chaotic. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your training. Train your self-talk. Train your mindset. Resilience in action. Real-life application. Let's bring this down to real life. A student fails a major exam. Her first thought is, I'm not cut out for this. But instead of spiraling, she pauses. She reminds herself, this is feedback, not failure. She meets with her professor, reviews her mistakes, adjusts her study plan, and earns a higher score next time. A small business owner loses a key client. He feels panic rise, but he takes a breath, looks at his numbers, and reaches out to 10 new leads. A week later, he lands a new deal, not by luck, but because he didn't freeze in the moment that mattered. A runner gets injured weeks before a race. Instead of quitting, she adapts her training, focuses on recovery, and returns stronger. She learns not just about running, but about resilience. Each of these people faced difficulty and chose to move forward with a mindset grounded in strength. So can you. Coming up next. Now that we've built the foundation of a resilient mindset, it's time to bring it into your daily life through habits. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to create rituals and routines that reinforce mental toughness even when motivation is low. Because mindset sets the tone, but habits shape your reality. Let's start building yours. Chapter 5. Creating habits that strengthen mental toughness. Mental toughness isn't a one-time decision. It's not built in the heat of a single dramatic moment. It's forged slowly over time through daily habits that train your focus, discipline, and resilience. The truth is, your life right now is the sum total of your habits. What you do consistently shapes how you think, how you feel, and who you become. And when it comes to developing mental toughness, the habits you practice or neglect determine your strength under pressure. You can't control the storms that come, but you can control the systems you build before the storm arrives. The habits you build are your shelter, your structure. They protect your focus when things get messy. They carry you when motivation fails. And they form the foundation that mental toughness grows from. In this chapter, we'll explore how to create habits that don't just look good on paper, but actually help you become stronger mentally day by day, decision by decision. Why habits matter more than willpower. Willpower feels strong in the moment. It's the inner push that helps you resist temptation, stay focused, or take action when things get hard. But willpower is also limited. It wears down over time, especially when you're stressed, tired, or overwhelmed. That's why mentally tough people don't rely solely on willpower. They rely on habits, routines, and systems that make the right action easier to follow through on. When something becomes a habit, it no longer depends on how motivated you feel. It becomes part of your identity, something you just do. Think of brushing your teeth. You don't need a motivational video to do it. You don't debate with yourself. You don't delay it for hours. You just do it because it's a habit. Imagine if showing up for your goals, doing hard things, or staying focused under pressure became just like that. That's what we're aiming for, habits that automate strength. Start small to build big. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to build habits is starting too big. They get excited, set a massive goal, overhaul their entire routine, and crash within days. Why? Because mental toughness isn't built on extreme effort. It's built on sustainable effort. The key is to start small enough to succeed, but consistent enough to create momentum. Want to build the habit of journaling? Don't aim to write 2 pages a day right away. Start with 3 sentences. Want to build a habit of morning workouts? Begin with 5 minutes of stretching. Want to reduce phone distractions? Start by putting your phone away for the first 15 minutes of deep work. These micro habits might seem insignificant, but they are powerful because they create a new identity. They whisper to your brain, "This is who I am now." And once that belief starts to take root, the behavior begins to reinforce itself. Use triggers and anchors to lock in your habits. Habits don't live in isolation. They're tied to triggers, cues in your environment, time of day, or emotional state. Mentally tough people understand this. They don't try to fight their way through chaos. They design their environment to support the habits they want to build. Want to build a reading habit? Leave your book next to your bed or where you drink your morning coffee. Want to do breath work or reflection every night? Anchor it to brushing your teeth. Want to limit distractions during work? Put your phone in another room before starting the task. The point is, don't rely on memory or willpower. Set up reminders, anchors, and rituals that make the behavior obvious, easy, and rewarding. Over time, the trigger will lead automatically to the behavior, and the habit becomes part of your rhythm. Track the habit, not just the outcome. Another powerful habit-strengthening practice is tracking your actions, not your results. Why? Because outcomes can be slow. You might be building discipline for weeks before you feel any payoff. That's when most people quit because they don't see the progress. But mentally tough people track their consistency and celebrate it. For example, use a habit tracker or journal to check off each time you follow through, even in a small way. Did you meditate for 2 minutes? Check. Did you write 1 paragraph? Check. Did you walk for 10 minutes instead of skipping movement? Check. These small wins create a sense of momentum. They keep you focused on process, not perfection, and they prove to yourself that you are someone who follows through. Momentum beats motivation, and habit tracking builds momentum, one action at a time. Repetition builds identity. Every time you complete a habit, no matter how small, you're casting a vote for your identity. When you wake up early, you're voting for the identity of someone who prioritizes growth. When you do the task you wanted to avoid, you're voting for the identity of someone who is consistent. When you pause before reacting emotionally, you're voting for the identity of someone who leads themselves. And the more votes you cast for that identity, the more solid it becomes. Until one day, you don't need to push yourself so hard anymore because it's simply who you are. This is the magic of habit. It shapes your story. And when you shift your story, you shift your life. Anticipate resistance and plan for it. Even the best habits face resistance. There will be days when you don't want to show up, when you're tired, discouraged, or distracted, when life feels like too much. That's not failure. That's normal. And mentally tough people don't ignore that fact, they plan for it. Create if-then plans for the moments when friction hits. If I don't feel like writing, I'll write for just 5 minutes. If I miss my morning workout, I'll walk in the evening. If I fall off for a day, I'll restart the next without shame. Planning for resistance removes the drama. It normalizes imperfection. It teaches your brain that a bad day isn't the end, it's just part of the rhythm. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to return quickly without self-judgment and keep the habit alive. Use your habits to practice discomfort. Remember, discomfort is the gym where mental toughness grows. So, use your habits not just to build discipline, but to train your tolerance for discomfort. Choose habits that stretch you slightly, that require presence, that ask something of you physically, emotionally, or mentally. Maybe that's taking cold showers, or doing a daily writing challenge, or having one difficult conversation each week, or sitting in stillness when you want distraction. These practices teach your brain, I can stay with discomfort. I don't need to run. I can breathe through this and come out stronger. And that training, it spills into everything else, your career, your relationships, your health, your goals. Your habits are your safety net. When life hits hard, and it will, your habits are the things that catch you. They give you something to return to, a sense of normalcy, a path forward. You might not always feel strong, but if you've built the habit of reflection, you'll sit down and journal when your thoughts are racing. If you've built the habit of movement, you'll go for a walk instead of collapsing into stagnation. If you've built the habit of daily planning, you'll regain direction even when things feel uncertain. Habits are not glamorous, they're not always exciting, but they are stable, and stability is the foundation of resilience. Coming up next, now that we've built strong habits, it's time to address the moments that test us most: pressure, failure, and the unexpected. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to handle high-stakes situations with composure and how to turn setbacks into comebacks. Because real toughness isn't shown in perfect routines. It's shown in what you do when the routine gets interrupted. Let's prepare you for those moments with power and clarity. Chapter 6. Handling Pressure and Setbacks. Everyone has a plan until life punches them in the face. That quote, often attributed to boxer Mike Tyson, captures something essential about success. What matters most is not how well you perform when everything goes right, but how well you respond when everything starts to go wrong. Because eventually, it will. Deadlines will pile up, projects will collapse, people will disappoint you, the plan will fall apart. Something unexpected will arrive and knock the wind out of you. And in those moments, your true strength is revealed. Pressure and setbacks aren't obstacles to your growth, they're the proving ground of your growth. This chapter is about learning how to stay calm, clear, and committed when life feels like it's unraveling. You'll learn how to interpret pressure, how to reframe failure, and how to respond to the hard moments with purpose, not panic. Because mental toughness doesn't mean you never get shaken, it means you never stay down for long. Pressure is a magnifier. One of the first truths about pressure is this: it doesn't create weakness. It reveals what's already there. Pressure exposes the cracks in your thinking, the gaps in your preparation, the habits you haven't built yet. It magnifies your mindset, whether that mindset is solid or fragile. And while that might sound harsh, it's actually a gift. Because when pressure reveals something that's not working, a belief, a behavior, a blind spot, you now have the opportunity to address it, to strengthen what's weak, to reinforce what's shaky. Pressure becomes feedback. The mentally tough don't avoid pressure. They train for it. They welcome it. Because they know that stress, handled well, sharpens you. It forces growth. It demands clarity. It invites new levels of discipline and perspective. You don't rise to the occasion. You rise to the level of your training. And pressure is where you discover what that level truly is. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Under pressure, most people speed up. They talk faster. breathe faster, react faster. They try to outrun the storm by doing more, faster. But the mentally tough know something different. Pressure is not a cue to rush, it's a cue to slow down. Slowing down doesn't mean doing less. It means becoming more intentional, more deliberate, more composed. When you're under pressure, practice this. Take a breath. Get still. Ask, what is actually needed right now? Not what feels urgent. Not what would be easiest. Not what everyone else is doing. What is the wisest move available to me in this moment? This simple pause, even for 10 seconds, can save you from hours or days of damage control. It turns reaction into response, chaos into clarity. Embrace the reset mentality. Setbacks are inevitable. Goals will get derailed. Plans will need to change. Sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes it's not. But the mentally tough have a secret. They don't make it personal. They make it a process. When something breaks, they don't collapse. They reset. Reset doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means re-engaging with the next right step instead of spiraling in regret or self-blame. Let's say you miss a week of workouts, or bomb a presentation, or fall back into an old habit. Instead of saying, "I've failed," you say, "Time to reset." You acknowledge what happened, you extract the lesson, then you step forward. No drama, no story, just the decision to start again smarter. This simple reset mentality is what keeps mentally tough people from losing momentum. It's not that they never fall, it's that they don't stay down for long. Don't let pressure shrink your thinking. One of the dangers of pressure is that it narrows your focus. You start thinking in black and white terms. You catastrophize. You go from "this is a problem" to "this is the end." Mentally tough people resist that spiral. They zoom out. They ask questions like, what's the worst-case scenario, and how would I handle it? What are my options I'm not currently seeing? Who can I reach out to for perspective? What does this challenge make possible for me? This shift from fear to framework helps you expand your mental space. It reconnects you with your resourcefulness. It opens the door to creative problem-solving. Remember, you are never as stuck as you feel. Pressure clouds judgment unless you reclaim your perspective. Build systems for crisis moments. You can't always predict a setback, but you can prepare for how you'll respond to one. This is where systems matter. Do you have a go-to process when you're overwhelmed? A calming ritual, like journaling or walking? A list of priorities you can return to when everything feels urgent? A friend or mentor you can talk to when emotions run high? Mentally tough people build these supports in advance, because they know that in the middle of the storm, they might not think clearly. But if a system is already in place, they can follow it even in chaos. Don't wait for a breakdown to build your foundation. Set it now while you're calm. Train yourself to reach for structure when stress hits. Because systems don't make you weak. They make you resilient by design. Failure is a better teacher than success. Most people fear failure. They take it personally. They assume it says something about their worth, their future, or their identity. But mentally tough people see failure differently. Not as a judgment, but as a teacher. Failure shows you what didn't work, what you didn't know, where you cut corners, where you didn't prepare. Yes, it's painful, but it's also packed with data. And if you're humble enough to receive that data and brave enough to keep going, you'll always emerge stronger. Ask anyone who has achieved anything meaningful, and they'll tell you, failure wasn't the end, it was the beginning of mastery. So when you fail, and you will, don't shrink. Study, don't shut down. Adjust, don't carry shame, carry lessons. Mental toughness is built not in avoiding failure, but in learning how to fail forward. Anchor yourself to purpose. When pressure is high and setbacks hit hard, it's easy to forget why you started in the first place. You lose sight of the vision. You get caught in the weeds. you start asking, is this even worth it? That's why mentally tough people anchor themselves to purpose, a clear reason for enduring the pain, the uncertainty, the resistance. Maybe it's to become someone your younger self would be proud of. Maybe it's to provide for your family. Maybe it's to break a cycle. Maybe it's to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. Whatever it is, know your why and return to it often. Because purpose is fuel. It gives you strength when the results haven't arrived yet. It reminds you that the struggle is not pointless. It's part of the path. You're not just enduring for nothing. You're building something that matters. Coming up next, in the final chapter, we'll bring everything together. You'll learn how to solidify mental toughness as part of your identity and how to carry these tools with you for the long term. Because being mentally tough isn't just about surviving the hard seasons, it's about showing up strong in every season of life. Let's close this journey with clarity, conviction, and confidence. When all is said and done, life isn't about avoiding pain, challenges, or setbacks. It's about who you become in the process of facing them. You can build skills, you can chase achievements, you can accumulate knowledge, but without mental toughness, the ability to stay grounded in chaos, committed in boredom, and courageous in uncertainty, none of it will last. Because life doesn't hand you the perfect conditions. It hands you opportunities disguised as pressure, resistance, and the choice to keep going when it would be easier to stop. That's why mental toughness isn't just something you develop and check off your list. It's a lifelong commitment, a way of thinking, a way of showing up, a quiet, steady voice inside you that says, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep choosing strength over comfort, growth over ease, integrity over impulse. And that voice? It's something you train every single day. Every time you do the hard thing when no one is watching. Every time you feel fear and act anyway. Every time you get knocked down and choose to rise. You are not weak for struggling. You are not broken for feeling overwhelmed. Mental toughness doesn't mean being unshakable. It means being willing to get back up, to learn, to evolve. And here's the most empowering truth of all. The mind you build will build your life. If you build a mind that avoids difficulty, you'll live a life filled with regret. If you build a mind that embraces challenge, you'll build a life filled with meaning. This journey, the habits, the discomfort, the mindset shifts, the small daily choices, it's not just about success in your work, your fitness, your goals. It's about becoming the kind of person who trusts themselves, who shows up with courage, who leads with clarity, who moves forward no matter what the world throws at them. So wherever you are today, whether you feel strong or shaky, clear or confused, remember this. You can begin again, you can keep building, and the next version of you is forged not by fate, but by your decisions. Keep training, keep rising, keep building the mind that will build the life you were meant to live.